What's up, everybody? It's wabaRaw, and in this video I'm going to be talking about Ascendancy and all the subclasses for the next expansion. And we have 19 new subclasses, 3 for each class except for the Scion, which will have 1. But in this video we're going to be talking about the Trickster right in front of us. Now, I really think that the Trickster is a well-designed Ascendancy subclass. There's a lot of themes going on in it, a lot of things that seem very cohesive, and I'm excited. I think it's going to have a lot more. I think it's going to have a lot more use than people initially may think. But we'll go ahead and go through it point by point. The first one we're going to be talking about is, Walk the Ether. Now, Walk the Ether makes it to where your movement skills cost no mana, and you get 20% increased attack speed and cast speed if you've used a skill in the past 4 seconds. Now, 20% attack speed and cast speed is pretty substantial, and this makes for, obviously you see this, you're like, oh, cool, free whirling blades. Well, you take it a step further, obviously. Cyclone is another really big one. Flicker Strike is another really big one. All these things that cost mana, all of them, will be pretty good. We have people talking about Lightning Warp Totems. I'm not entirely sure how this will work with Lightning Warp Totems, though, because you're not using the movement skill, your totem is. So you're still placing the totem. So we'll see how that comes out. The point before Walk the Ether is 8% increased maximum mana and 4% increased attack speed. Now, I don't actually really care for the 8% increased maximum mana in this, but it's fine. It ties a little bit into the next one that we're going to be talking about, which is Weave the Arcane. Now, Weave the Arcane, it's 25% increased maximum mana, 50% increased mana regen, and 5% chance to recover 10% of your maximum mana when you use a skill. So this might have some really interesting implications with some of the newer mind over matter mana-based mind over matter builds, which we really haven't seen for a long time. Everyone's been using Eldritch Battery with mind over matter now, and while it works, I think something that a lot of people have really overlooked, and possibly maybe GGG has, maybe they overlooked at a point, or maybe they overlooked this before, and maybe they realize it now, or maybe they knew it all along, whatever. But when they changed Eldritch Battery and Mind Over Matter, it made characters using Mind Over Matter and Eldritch Battery considerably weaker versus Chaos damage, because Chaos damage still penetrates your energy shield. So if you are Eldritch Battery right now in 2.1, whenever you take Chaos damage, and it's like from a spider or the the Jungle Valley boss, the Chaos EK, it doesn't even touch your Eldritch Battery. It doesn't even touch that if you're Mind Over Matter. And before, one of the great things about Mind Over Matter is how it did work for that. It actually did work for that. It made your your energy shield into something that would, it made it into mana, and then if you took Chaos damage, like from that, it would essentially work. But now it doesn't. So I think there may be some room in the future for some mana-based mind over matter builds, and this looks like a pretty decent mind over matter mana-based build right here, clearly. And then the 5% chance to recover 10% of your maximum mana whenever you use a skill. This is obviously going to work really well with skills that have low costs and that you cast, at a great rate, like Incinerate, for example. Now, just me looking at this and the way I like to play, Weave the Arcane doesn't really seem that exciting to me, but I feel like there's going to be someone who's smarter than me, who's more creative than me, and they're going to find a way to make this something that myself and a lot of other players really enjoy. The node before it is also the same, attack and cast speed and maximum mana, along the lines of Walk the Ether. But now let's go ahead and talk about the next one, Ghost Dance. Now, Ghost Dance is, I actually really like Ghost Dance. It gives you 20% faster start of your energy shield recharge, and 5% chance to dodge attacks, and 5% chance to dodge spell damage, or just 5% chance to dodge spells. And then 10% increased movement speed while on full energy shield. Now, the movement, I think Ghost Dance would have been perfectly fine without that last line. I don't think it needed that line at all. But it has it, whatever. It's not going to hurt. But 5% chance to dodge attacks and spells, that's pretty good. You know, especially if you layer your defenses in a way, you could easily get a Hyri's Ire, and you could grab yourself some Itsiri Steps, and you're going to have, you know, a nice little bit of dodge and spell dodge to supplement your defenses. So I'm 100% okay with that. And then the thing that I feel like a lot of people, you know, don't really care too much about this. I probably value it a little bit more, but the 20% faster start of energy shield recharge, that's pretty cool. Energy shield recharge is a pretty neat mechanic. You know, I really wish you could get more easily. I wish the values were a little bit higher on jewels, and especially as someone who's played a lot of Mind Over Matter Eldritch Battery characters, faster start of energy shield recharge is, like I said, it's pretty good. The passive on, or the cluster on the tree, Essence Surge in between Eldritch Battery and the Curse cluster, it's always something that it's always something that looks really cool, and it feels nice when you get that recharge going, but it's not point efficient for many reasons. And you know, it's never like along the way for most builds. And I wish we saw a 20% faster start, or I wish we just saw, you know, faster start of energy shield recharge a little bit more. It's a mechanic that's not really used that often, and you know, for good reason, but it's interesting. I like its addition here because it brings a little bit of attention to the mod. And now the nodes in this branch, we'll just call it a branch, are 8% increased evasion, 8% increased maximum energy shield, and then 4% attack and cast speed. There's a lot of attack and cast speed in Trickster, and I like these two. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about, and this is the one that I like the most, Shade Form. Now, Shade Form gives you flat 500 evasion rating, flat 250 maximum energy shield, and then it gives you 20% increased attack and cast speed if energy shield recharge has started in the past 4 seconds. 20% faster start of energy shield recharge. Works, you know, there's a lot of synergy with Ghost Dance. Clearly, I mean, it's in the same branch. But then 20%, and then the last mod, and this is something that I think is pretty substantial. 20% more chance to evade attacks while not on full energy shield. And you know, recently I was talking with, I believe it was Noogie, and we were chatting. Me, Noogie, and Moors were chatting, and Noogie had mentioned that he looks for EVES bases, energy shield evasion bases, because they're not valued very much, and why not get that extra defense, you know, and it doesn't really affect, you know, you don't really lose too much energy shield on it, but you gain quite a bit of evasion. And I feel like this will bring a little bit of attention to that. 20% more chance to evade attacks. This is a more multiplier. So if you manage to scrounge up, you know, 200 evasion through your gear and through your passives, you're going to get, you know, another 500 evasion on top of that, plus the flat evasion on this. This is pretty good. I mean, that's just a little bit more defense for an energy shield, you know, evasion character. I like this theme that they're going with, this like elusive trickster, hence the name Trickster, right? But and then back to the 20% increased attack and cast speed if energy shield recharge has started in the past 4 seconds. If you were to go walk the ether and Shade Form, which I think is actually a pretty solid choice for a lot of builds, you're going to be receiving 48% attack speed and 48% cast speed quite regularly. And this is pretty good. 48% attack speed and 48% cast speed is pretty good, especially if you are utilizing the movement skills cost no mana to its fullest potential. You essentially want to try to treat this like it's an extra link, right? You want to reserve all your mana. You don't have to worry about it. It's cool. You could use it with Cyclone, Flicker, etc., etc. This is pretty cool. Now, but let's go ahead and move on. Patient Reaper. Now, Patient Reaper gives you 30% increased damage over time and 60% increased recovery of life, mana, and energy shield if you've killed an enemy affected by your damage over time in the past 4 seconds. For the most part, a build that is a damage over time build, all the enemies are going to die from your damage over time effects. Poison builds right now, they're very popular, and a lot of mobs do die just from your damage over time effects. That's what your build's meant to do. So this is essentially going to be something you get frequently, but I don't think it's as strong as the other ones. I mean, for the points you're getting 40% increased damage over time, which is fine, but these are just, it doesn't add too much flavor to the playstyle. This does work. I believe this works for flasks and life regen alike. So if you have 2% life regen, if you have 60% increased life regen, that's going to put you at 3.2% life regen essentially. But I don't really think that's that necessary. I don't know. Call me crazy, call me stupid, but this is okay. You know, I like this more than I like Weave the Arcane, but I think there's a lot more potential for Weave the Arcane in the long run, especially for a player who has a different mindset than I do. But let's go ahead and move on to Swift Killer. Now, the Swift Killer gives you +1 to maximum Frenzy Charge, and then it gives you 10% chance to gain Frenzy Charge on kill. I like +1 maximum Frenzy Charge. That makes sense to me, but I feel that the 10% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge on kill is a little. I don't get the value out of that much, because in the Talisman League, I tried out a lot of the talismans, and some of the talismans gave you 10% chance to gain a charge on kill, and it just didn't. It didn't feel like you could really sustain. Sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. Now I get it. That just means you need to kill faster. Yeah, if you're going through content super fast, you're probably going to be able to sustain off this. But, you know, I think it's just a little bit boring. I think a little bit more flavor could have been in this. +1 maximum Frenzy Charge, and, you know, maybe like 10% increased Frenzy Charge effectiveness, or something like that. But because the thing is, at the end of the day, you're most likely still going to be using your Blood Dance. You're still going to be using your Blood Rage. You're still going to be using blah, blah, blah. You're still going to be using the things to generate the Frenzy Charges, most likely. I don't think 10% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge is enough to reliably make this work, but, you know, I don't know. There might be a build that comes up that, you know, absolutely changes that and makes me look dumb, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm still learning about Path of Exile. I've even done videos about the Ascendancy classes that now after I've played more and more builds, I'm looking back at it, I'm like, I said some dumb things. So, not a very big fan of the first line on Swift Killer. +1 maximum Frenzy Charge. That's great, but I think we already have a Frenzy Charge class, and that's the one of the Ranger ones. I forgot what it's called right now. Not Pathfinder, not Deadeye. Raider. There you go. But yeah, so that's what I think about the Trickster. Now, overall, I think the Trickster Ascendancy subclass, I think it's going to have a lot more use than people may give it credit for initially, and you know, it's pretty good, especially when you have things like this. Noogie has said it best recently. Whenever you have a node that essentially gives you an extra link, it's going to be pretty good. generally it's going to be pretty good. And this is one of them. Walk the Ether. I even think, for some of the builds that I play, going Walk the Ether and Shade Form is a perfectly acceptable Ascendancy subclass. So, yeah. Yeah, so there you go. That's what I think of the Trickster. Leave your comments and your thoughts below. If you want to come check me out on my Twitch and tell me how wrong I am, you could see me at twitch.tv/wabaRaw. I'm going to be recording a few more of these today. So, yeah, let's go. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Looking away.
Just a little bit moving towards D3, right? They fixed desync, which was a huge problem for people. I think that the game is honestly faster and more arcadey. And I don't want to use that word lightly. I'm not. It's not like D3. D3, it feels very, you blow the barrels up and the monsters go flying and the ragdoll and everything. But like Pee-wee's definitely faster paced than it was even a year ago. So I think you see that happening right now. So does that mean that we can get